Hi all, welcome back to Beanie Composter. Although the beginning of January the mercury was in double figures, since then we've pretty much been in Surrey, freezing or struggling to get above 6, 7, 8 degrees. And for me, and I'm sure from what I've seen quite a lot of you, the Hotbin has just gone cold. So today's video is about, is it just me or is it the weather that's causing your Hotbin to go cold? Okay guys, so I've already had my first bollocking of the day. The missus was moaning I'd pinched her gloves, so I've had to resort back to the pink ones that someone gave me a real good comment on, and the missus says I look like a tramp. And yes, I know I need a, the jacket needs a wash and that, but we are composting, aren't we? So does it really matter? I don't think so. We done the video on the Mini, how much I was feeding it in the winter, and you saw in that video I had it hot composting, and then suddenly it just dropped and went cold. As the temperature really went cold and we had some frosts. But on that video I posted, we had a couple of comments. So Paul Lee heard that if you put the kickstart bottle in your compost with the feed, and you shut the valve, the top valve, and leave that for 24 hours, that should get things going again. So my resentment to using electricity. I didn't really want to try it out, but I thought, well, this is a great experiment. The reason we bought the Mini was to start doing experiments with it and see what happens. So yesterday in the Mini, I boiled the kettle and put the kickstart bottle in there, and I shut the valve completely shut like Paul said, and we've left that for 24 hours and we're going to see if that's made any difference. Apparently it gives it time to get all the heat back into it, and you bring the temperature up. They've both been running around about 30 degrees, so not ideal. And the Hotbin company, when you look on their website, it says the Hotbin doesn't require electricity. The Hotbin company also say if the temperature outside is below 15 degrees, then you need to, every time you put a feed in, to use the kickstart bottle. Well, I'm sorry, but if you're gonna have to boil the kettle every time you put a feed in, then the Hotbin is requiring electricity, so they've kind of got that wrong as well. But I want to try and get this going. I did, like I say, I emptied some of it yesterday, gave it a good stir around. It was very dry inside. I put the kickstart bottle in and another feed just to see if that gets things going. And if you have a look what's going on in here now. So with this one, I left the valve just as it should be. The kickstart bottle is in there, but the temperature, it still just isn't doing a thing. And I would have kind of expected it to come up a little bit more than that. This is what I took out of the large Hotbin yesterday. If I show you close up, when I opened the hatch door, the sides were a little bit, wet, but not overly wet. But the middle was absolutely bone dry. It was, that charcoaly sort of kind of look. So the whole compost in general is not, wet or damp, or, it's what you'd expect. And if you look at, that, you can see plenty of bulking agent in there, so lots of air pocket spaces, so no real reason why it should be going cold. And as I keep saying, this was running really hot in January, and it's just since the weather sort of plummeted that it went cold again. I managed to get my new raking stick out of the shed, so let's give this one a good stir up and see if that makes any difference. so we're not, you know, too wet in here. I did put some of the top and the bits that fell out the bottom that had like vegetable peelings and that in, I put back in the top. That's why it's looking a bit, you know, composty on the top than normal. So I gave it a good stir yesterday, but you know, nothing's really happened even with the kickstart bottle. We've got plenty of paper and cardboard in there. I put plenty in there, so I'll just give it a good stir up. So we had the mini hot composting for a while, then as the temperature dropped, so did the temperature inside the mini, and even though I was still feeding it every other day, but it still just wasn't rising. We were sticking at around about 30 degrees. So we tried that experiment yesterday that Paul mentioned. The kickstart bottle went in and the valve has been shut, so let's have a look to see if that's made any difference. So, I don't know if you can see the dial there. What are we at? You know, we're, you know, not doing much different to what we were before I put that kickstart bottle in, so that really hasn't made an ounce of difference. And I'm going to open the valve now because obviously we need airflow going through, and I'm going to give that a mix up and another feed and we'll see what happens now I've opened the valve. But I got a comment, as I said, from Kaisa. If you go on to that video and read that, you probably find it quite an interesting read. This is the reason we started the hot composting channel, because everyone, you know, now and again gives really great comments, and it really does help everybody on the channel out, and probably people that haven't even subscribed are reading stuff, and you know, it inspires them or gives them, you know, some sort of passion to get the composter, or you know, to start composting, which is great. But comment really sort of inspired me, and as I said, it got my competitive juices flowing, and I sort of thought to myself, how come someone in Estonia that is like -20 is managing to keep their hot bin hot, and me in Surrey where it's like about 6 degrees and maybe -2 at the most, or 3, is struggling. So I'm going to explain to you some of the stuff he said and what I'm going to try to change to make things different for me.
It's a women's name.
What is it? How do you pronounce it then?
But you said he said.
So the missus, being Eastern European, has just said to me, Kaisa is a woman's name, because I'm not very good at all this and, you know, pronouncing things. We've had to come inside because someone's got their circular saw out and is chopping their wife up ready to go in the hot bin. But yeah, the missus says we can't film with all that racket going on. So a little background on Kaisa. From Estonia, and the Hotbin was given out as some sort of government scheme, but they weren't really explained how to use it very well. So they were watching the channel and, you know, said that they learnt a lot from, you know, the channel, which is brilliant. And first of all, they struggled in, you know, cold, snow, -20, you know, the whole thing froze up. So they brought the hot bin inside, and I know not everyone's going to be able to do that, but I think they defrosted it, they got everything, you know, hot composting again. Then they decided to change a few things. So this is what they changed. So number one, they decided to place their hot bin under some sort of shelter and cover where it was away from the snow, the rain, and they also put it in like a corner where, you know, gusts of wind and that wouldn't, you know, hit it all the time. Number two, they decided to feed it every other day. Number three, they decided to measure the quantity they were putting in that bin. So they would put 5 litres. Now I don't know whether they've got the mini or the larger 200 litre one, it would be nice, you know, to find that out. But they were measuring exactly what they were putting in waste wise. Number 4, with that 5 litre of waste, they were putting double of the, you know, cardboard or shredded paper in. So they were putting 2 by 5 litre buckets of shredded paper into their hot bin every time they fed it with 5 litres. Number 5, they actually bought a cross shredder and found that that really worked a lot better. Number 6, so everything they were putting in their hot bin was at room temperature and not from like outside. And number 7, they decided to open the valve on their hot bin just that little bit more. So I think I did say that in one of the videos, that it did actually help getting, you know, our bin up to temperature by opening that valve. But I think for them, because they'd had like a lot of snow, and if they kept the, you know, the valve, you know, quite tightly closed, then it would freeze over. Since they've done those 7 changes, the hot bin has been running at, you know, 60 degrees, even in -20, and I think they said most of the time the weather hadn't been like over 6 degrees. So, you know, that really did inspire me to try and get mine, you know, up and running. So I thought it would be quite nice to see the difference between things that they've changed and things that I might have been doing wrong. With my hot bins, I think, you know, they're right in the corner by the side of the garage, and they're actually quite sheltered, and we don't get mega cold temperatures here. Like I say, I think, you know, the most we get in Surrey would be -4, -5 if you're lucky. So I don't feel like, for me, I need to move mine. They are quite sheltered, and when it comes to rain, we do get a bit of rain, but not as much as people think in the UK. But bulking agent, let's look at that for starters. Back in springtime, you know, I saw on the side of the road there was some bulking agent, and I collected quite a few bags just for me to store over the summer period. And I managed to keep some in a, you know, a big bin that we don't use, which is bone dry. And I've just taken that out this morning, and it's still lovely and bone dry, no moisture. But the one I have been using, which is round the side of the garage, easier for me to sort of access it, and it was in a dustbin with a lid on, but you know, look at that, it's still, you know, very wet and damp, and I don't know why that is, whether that's just the moisture that still gets into it. But you know, I just thought to myself, well, maybe that's adding too much moisture, so that's not really helping things. So from now on, I'm gonna just use the bone dry stuff in the winter time. We're in the lean-to conservatory, whatever you want to call it, bit on the side of the house, which is, you know, not much warmer than outside. It's actually the missy's extra fridge in the winter time, so if she's cooking cakes and that, she brings them all out here and they cool in minutes. So it's proper cold out here. I'd say not a lot of difference between the outside temperature if you were keeping stuff in a shed than in here. So normally I bring stuff home from work and I just dump it in the, you know, in here, and it's just left there till I use it. So I'm gonna check with the thermometer what sort of temperature that food or waste is at when it's left either in your shed or, you know, in a cold room, and let's see the difference between what it would be like in here compared to if you left it indoors. So this has been in the conservatory lean-to. Like I say, we don't have any heating in there. We leave the windows open because, you know, we get moisture otherwise, and So pretty much the same temperature in here as in outside, and we're on a tiled floor here, which is proper cold on your feet. So you know, this has been sitting in here since I brought it home from work a couple of days ago, and you know, we're at what, 6.97 degrees. Let's go indoors and see what the food waste similar would be in room temperature. So we're indoors now. You know, the missus has got the heating on at around about 20 degrees, and this is almost identical waste to what I brought home, you know, from work, only this one's been sitting indoors all the time and not been outside. And there you can see we're at a 10 degrees difference, which I think you'd agree is, you know, quite a big difference for the hot bin to recover in terms of temperatures, and would probably make quite a bit of difference. I also brought some paper indoors as well, just to see whether the difference on that what would be. So this is the one that's been left inside, and we're at like 19.5 there. So let's see what outside one would be. This is the cross-threaded paper that the missus brings home from work. Let's hope there's no more student whatever they are, identity cards torn up in there, because I wasn't too pleased about that. This one has been sitting, you know, outside in the lean-to conservatory thing as well, and I always take it from, you know, here. So you know, another 10 degrees difference there, probably just a little bit more than 10 degrees, and you wouldn't think that paper would be, you know, that cold, you know, compared to indoors and outdoors, but you know, you can see there that is quite a huge difference as well. So that just goes to show how much of a difference in not only your food waste, but even the paper that you're putting in the compost, if it's, you know, stored outside, the difference in temperature there. And you saw from the bulking agent, the one that I had stored outside in not maybe the best way, that was soaking wet, and you know, the bone dry one, you're not going to add that excess moisture to it. And you know, that's probably another thing that you could, you know, I'm not saying to bring it all indoors, but you could, every time you top your hot bin up, you could, you know, get it all ready, that bucket, and keep it indoors in like a closed lid, just to warm that up. In, in terms of, you know, me feeding the hot bin, I have tended to just put in what I think at the time, and I haven't measured it. So that's one thing that I'm going to try to do from now on, is measure a 5 litre caddy every other day. And when I add that 5 litre caddy in, although I've said I put a lot more cardboard in, I am just sort of, you know, guesstimating everything rather than measuring it. So I'm, from now on, I'm gonna, if I add in a 5 litre caddy worth of waste, I'm gonna add in, like Kasia says, 2 lots of paper or cardboard, and I'm gonna make sure they are stored indoors, you know, especially the paper and the waste, just to make sure they are at room temperature rather than being stone cold. And we're gonna, you know, the missus is frowning about that one, she's not too happy, but you know, if it's kept in a tight lid, it's not going to be indoors for, you know, ever, and it's only just one bucket, like you're keeping, you know, your kitchen caddy waste indoors. So I don't think it's going to impact too much. I know not everyone's got the facilities or the, you know, the ways of doing this, but I just thought this video would really help a lot of you out, and you know, you can try these things out, and hopefully we will get a few more comments from people on how they manage theirs, and you know, what they're doing to keep their hot bins hot. But for me, from now on, I feel like I've got my enthusiasm back for the hot bin, and you know, I want to get it hot composting again and keep that hot. If you look on the Hotbin website, you'll see Hotbin works all year round and keeps on working right through the winter when most other methods go to sleep. Well, it does work, you know, all through the winter, and even if you're at 30 degrees, you're still going to be composting better than a cold composter. But, you know, when I used to work a previous job, I used to cycle past some stables, and when my hot bin had gone cold, I'd just cycle past where they'd keep all the manure, and I'd see even in the frosty cold days that would be steaming, and I'd always be a bit gutted that that was working and they weren't even making any effort, and I was making a load of effort, and I had an insulated hot bin, yet mine wasn't working. So, you know, it just goes to show that something is going wrong there.
You need to shit in your hot bin.
I think I've made more balls ups in this video than Boris Johnson this week. If you noticed in the video, there's a few editing bits here and there. I actually got Kaisa's name wrong, so I real apologise for that. And yeah, I read it without my glasses and I thought it said Kasha. So yeah, sorry about that, but yeah, I need to do my homework in future. I thought it would be a bit cruel to sort of do all this video and then not show you the results I've had. So 4 days after me doing that Paul's experiment of me putting the kickstart bottle in and shutting the valve, after I actually opened the valve and fed it the way Kaisa was saying, the mini is back up to temperature, but the large one is still struggling, and I've got a feeling that Paul's experiment did made a little bit of difference. So tonight I'm going to feed the large one and I'm going to do that Paul's experiment overnight. But before I get another bollocking, I've got to clean the kitchen floor because the missus is moaning we got compost all over it. So, you know, thank you for watching. I hope this has really helped you out. Don't forget, if you haven't already subscribed, give us a comment, subscribe, and until next time, happy composting and enjoy. And the missus says, Viva Estonia. I don't know what that means.